Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Sorry, I'm running a little bit late. Um, Sometimes things happen, I guess. A little bit of technical difficulty as well. Excuse me. For those that don't know anything about me, um, this venture and this process has begun from a very long time ago, and I kind of decided to get into it. Um, just so you know my background. I've been in education. I'm an educator at a local high school and I've been in education for 13 years. Here in the next approximately 3 months, I'll finish my PhD in education, and I'm a real estate agent. I have a master's in human relations and counseling. I'm a former law enforcement officer, a United States veteran. I was in the Air Force as well. And I grew up in the military. In addition to that, of course, most importantly, I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I live in the area. So today's topic of sorts, I want to discuss a little bit about the power of choice. I think a lot of times as we go through life, we have a tendency to want to place blame or fault on the actions of others. And of course, in a lot of ways, we all are, as human beings, are naturally, we have emotions that take place. We have obviously anger, we have sadness, we have depression, we have senses of fear and anger, of course, tendencies of joy and happiness. And life is made up in a lot of ways of far from just a straight line in a scale that we can put in one category or the other. Um, I think through all these things, there's a major process of choice that exists. And I think where we tend to fall short in a lot of ways is where we decide to draw our lines in the sand. And then at what point in time, whatever line we decide, determine that we draw in the sand, or what I say is basically chalk on the pavement or something, so is when we begin to allow others to dictate our choices for us. And I think anytime you allow somebody else to dictate your choice for you is when you start to fall into the realm of these portions of anger and sadness, and we don't allow to empower ourselves to make the choices and see that we have a choice within our circumstance. I had a student today that approached that I noticed something was going on, and it had to do with money, and she was acting very angry towards one of her siblings. And I said, and I was explaining, we had a conversation. I was like, well, what was that all about? And she was like, oh, I had this $10, and I had to give it to my sibling. I'm like, okay, well, you had, well, we don't always have a choice. And I said, well, that's absolutely true. You don't necessarily always have a choice, but based on the circumstance, you are indeed obviously helping someone within the process, whether it's from your sister or from somebody else. You have a choice whether you want to give or not give. So if you choose to give, and that's ultimately what you're saying you're going to do, then you should choose to give with an open heart, to choose to give the circumstances that you are helping out, and versus being angry about, over something that is so trivial, minute, over the $10 situation. And as she looked upon it, she came to a realization of, like, yeah, there's a way to go about doing things. And I think within our senses of how we look at this portion of power, because there's obviously inevitably some things we cannot control. There's no doubt about it. You talk about death. That's not something that's controlled by any means. We talk about if somebody wants to cause us some physical harm that we don't have any control over, we can potentially, hopefully, be able to defend ourselves within the action. But there's certain things that, without a doubt, we don't have control over. So we can kind of, as we go through life, prepare for the possibilities that exist from what we cannot control. But there are things obviously that will come into play that there's nothing we can do about. So what I try to instill in people, and my students and people that I have around me, is that process of the things we can control. And I think we need to really regulate and think about what we can control, and then make the actions for those senses of joy and happiness that lives within us. And I think, truly, believe it or not, I think stress, anxiety, and depression, believe it or not, in a lot of ways is a gift. And struggle, it's a gift. And the reason why I'm saying it's a gift is because when you're happy, you're not worrying about struggle. You're not worrying about depression. You're not worrying about these anxieties. So there's no real struggle or circumstance to get us out of the situation where we're in. And maybe we're in good places. And if you're in a good place, that's a beautiful thing. However, when you're not in a good place and you're being woken up in the middle of the night, hence the reason why I'm kind of going through this process right now, or having senses of stress or anxiety, like, then we have to work towards making a change within ourselves. We can't make the expectation of another person to make change for us. We need to make the changes in ourselves. So what does that look like? Well, as I've gone through the different things and things I've heard within my own education, and even most importantly, most recently, the Goldcast and things that I've seen, there's definitely a dynamic theme that is taking place. And I think one of those things is being able to ask yourself important questions as you venture through life. And those questions will indicatively look different for each person. I think you should definitely go throughout your day and ask yourself questions. Okay, well, why indeed do I feel depressed? Why do I feel anxious? Why do I feel stressed? Why do I feel the things that I feel within inside of myself? And then as you're asking whatever those questions look like for you, I think you definitely now need to venture to get out of those senses of depression, anxiety, and stress and whatever. You need to definitely work towards those things that within your heart and mind that are working towards your future success. I think, I know for me, as I've gone through life, there's definitely been plenty of failures. I just can never, in my own heart of heart, my mind and minds, be accepting of my failures, because I know that even in the darkest and deepest corners, that in these senses of depression, anxiety, and stress, that I know when I'm going through this struggle that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I know times are going to get better without a doubt. I know there's going to be a better place for me. I know I'm going to be in a better situation. I know things are going to expand and become greater than I've ever had before, but I have to go through the struggle to get to the better times, the good times. And I think, I think it's just so important. Now, of course, at some point in time, we think of things as plateauing out, and then there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with living in a moment of joy and happiness and taking full advantage of that, not looking back and saying, well, I'm happy now, that automatically sadness is going to be along the way. I think you have to, in many ways, also live in a moment. And ponder over the things that you have in your life and look for the things that are definitely good. Let's not always dwell on the things and the negative and the wants of the world. I think it's so important to, as come to a realization that you have things that are without a doubt good in your life. And for those that don't know, me, I'm very faith-based and very, very passionate about my God. And I'm not by any means trying to instill anything in anybody. I think in all ways, individualism is so important as you go through life. I think, I think you have to figure out insightfully what definitely works for you. I believe in the majority of cases, when your heart and mind are working together towards one goal, it's the most beautiful and passionate thing you can ever have in your life. As long as, and here's a key ingredient, and I thought about this, within the early hours of the morning, was as long as within your heart and mind is doing something where it does not directly place others in harm's way. Because obviously there is no doubt about it, and there's no doubt about it, obviously, from me being a former law enforcement officer and being and seeing the things that I've seen and being a part of the things I've seen, there is truly a sense of evil that exists in the world. And anybody who doesn't believe that, it's great that you've been able to carry through your life and not necessarily potentially be in harm's way, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I know for a fact that it exists, and and I'll talk about different situations and circumstances that I've been privy to and been in the place of in those moments in which in life has definitely changed for me forever. There's certain things that obviously that I've been through that I can never get out of my head, and I think it's just very, very important to really look from within yourself and think about these moments. Ask yourself questions. Know that you have within your individual self the greatness to move on, to move forward and do great things. And I think ultimately you'll end up in, within these peaks and valleys, venturing off to do the things that you want to in life. So I wish you best as you go through these moments and through these struggles and through these times and through these happiness, and for if I'm able to in any which way, shape, or form to be a guiding light in your life, that's a true member of purpose for me. And I will be eventually. I had to change my name, by the way, because oddly enough, I thought I had this wonderful name for my book that I was beginning to write, which was Imperfectly Perfect. And lo and behold, Google search. I grew up in the day not so much of Google search and stuff. Like, you had a name, you were like, okay, let's put it down, and yeah, this works great. And you would have to research and figure out, well, did other people use it? Well, yes. So other people did use it. So I came up with the name of Elegantly Inadequate. So I'm starting with my YouTube feed on that. So this will eventually go to the YouTube situation, maybe edited, maybe music. I don't know. I'm not sure. So I look forward to you guys looking on that page as well. And this will be kind of a play over towards that. And you can, when it goes on to YouTube, I'm sure I don't know how it all works yet, but I kind of started looking at it. So there'll be places that you can kind of look on that, and then I'll, provide feedback, comment. If you have things that are going on, please feel free to reach out to me at any moment in time. And I wish you the best prayers, love, and you guys all take care of yourself.